Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another series of this class. I'm very happy you are here today, and I'm very happy that I am also here today in good health. Thank you so much for being part of this class. Yes, my name is Dr. Olayinka Abosedeoju, and I am your lecturer for endocrinology. Yes, endocrinology. What is endocrinology? Endocrinology is the study of endocrine glands. Endocrine glands are also known as ductless glands. That is, they don't have a particular duct or passageway through which their substance or their product is being transported from the point of production to the point of usage. Now, endocrinology has to do with the study of endocrine glands, which produces a chemical substance known as hormone. And this hormone is being carried by the blood circulation to a target organ at some distance from the original endocrine gland where it exerts its influence. Now, this chemical substance known as hormone, is coordinate the activities of various aspects in a multicellular organism. And because endocrine glands lack ducts, that is, they are ductless, they don't have a channel or passageway through which this hormone is being passed from the endocrine gland to the target organ where they exert their influence, so they imbibe the use of blood circulation as a means of transport. So these endocrine glands include, there are many, but for the purpose of this class, we will just look into about 6 or 7 endocrine glands. Now, the first one is pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is also known as master gland, and it is subdivided into 3 major parts. We have the anterior pituitary gland, the posterior pituitary gland, and the intermediate pituitary gland. These 3 subsections also have their own hormones they produce, making pituitary gland produce a total of 9 hormones. Thyroid gland is also another endocrine gland that produces thyroid related hormones such as tridothyronine and tetrodotyronine. Yes, and we also have parathyroid gland. We have adrenal gland. Adrenal gland is also subdivided into 2. We have the adrenal cortex and the adrenal medulla. These 2 subsections also have their hormones specific to them and which they produce. And lastly, for this class, we have the gonads. The gonads represent testes and the ovary. These 2 are the primary organ of reproduction in the male and female animals, respectively. Hormones are chemical messengers that helps to control the activities in a multicellular organism. And the target organ is the organ which that hormone produced by the endocrine gland is flowing into to exert their influence upon. As students or as workers, you have a target. Maybe as a student, you want to be a first class student, you want to come with a very high CGPA, you want to graduate, you have a lot of things to do, a lot of targets. What do you do to achieve their target? You focus and you do everything necessary to achieve that aim. Also, endocrine glands have a target. That is, they have a focus. Their focus is to produce hormones that will go into a particular organ, which is we tag as target organ, to exert their influence upon. So target organs are such organs that are a far or a little distance away from the endocrine gland where the hormones are going into to exert their influence. Now, these images represent the endocrine glands which I've earlier mentioned. We have the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland is located along the trachea at the lateral portion and the cranial portion of the trachea in animals. Also, the second image here represents the pituitary gland, which is also located at the base of the brain. I said earlier that it's subdivided into 3 portions. Here we have the anterior, the posterior, and the intermediate pituitary glands. Also here we have the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland is located at the cranial part of the kidney, and it also has its own hormones it produces. Yes. This is another segment of endocrine glands. Here we have the parathyroid gland. The thyroid and the parathyroid gland are both located along the trachea. When the thyroid gland, are very closely related and they are closely located along the trachea. Also here we have the testes. The testes represent the primary organ of reproduction in male animals, and it produces its own hormone, majorly testosterone, which takes part in spermatogenesis. Here we have the ovary. The ovary is the primary organ of reproduction in the female, and it also produces estrogen. Estrogen is the hormone in the female that stimulates secondary sex characteristics in the female animal. Yeah, this particular image is representing the locations of all the endocrine glands in animals. Here we have the pituitary gland at the base of the brain. Here we have the parathyroid and the thyroid gland along the trachea. We have the adrenal gland at the cranial portion of the kidney. We have the ovaries and the testes at the lateral and dorsal portion of the animal. Here also we have the pancreas, which is also known as islet or Langerhans. It is located along the esophagus in animals, and it also produces its own hormones. Yes, hormone receptors. What are hormone receptors? Now, I usually like to, relate the hormone receptors to receptionists in a hotel. Receptionist receives the guests, gives the guests the key, allocate the rooms, and then gives the terms and conditions for that particular hotel to the customer. So, hormone receptors are literally like receptionists. As soon as the hormones is approaching the target organ, the hormone receptors, they bind with the specific hormones, and this helps in initiating a cascade of cellular effects, ultimately modifying the cell's physiology or behavior. The hormone receptors could be intracellular, which is within the target organ, or extracellular, located outside the target organ. Yes, classification of hormones. We have a lot of classifications of hormones. The classification in this class, we are going to limit it to the chemical nature, the mechanism of action, the nature of action, the effects, and whether they stimulate other endocrine glands. Under the chemical nature, we have that of the steroid hormones. Steroid hormones belong to a chemical compound known as steroids, and they are secreted from a particular endocrine gland known as the adrenal cortex, the testes, the ovaries, and also the placenta. They are also cholesterol derived and synthesize a host of hormones. Now we have yes. So for the nature of organ, we are still going to delve into other, okay? Yes. Still under the chemical nature, we have the amine hormones. Amine hormones are derived from amino acids. And we have different examples such as adrenaline, noradrenaline. We have thyroxine-derived ones, which is also known as catecholamines, which is epinephrine and norepinephrine, which are hormones of fight or flight. Then we also have other ones such as melatonin. In addition to the classification of hormones by their chemical nature, we also have peptide hormones. Peptide hormones are a class of hormones which are produced by specialized glands, and they are made up of or made from amino acids. We have calcitonin, vasopressin. We also have others. Also, we have glycoprotein hormones. These are a family of complex protein-based hormones which helps to regulate reproduction and metabolism. Examples, we have the luteinizing hormone, we have the thyroid-stimulating hormone, and human chorionic gonadotropin hormones. Now, under the nature of action, here we have different categories. We have the local hormones, the general hormones, the tropic and the non-tropic hormones. Now, for the local hormones, I like to relate it with our locality, that is a local environment or somewhere we can call locality. Now, local hormones are such hormones that have their specific effect on nearby target cells without really entering the general blood circulation. Earlier I mentioned that hormones are released into the blood circulation and through which they are carried to the target organs. But in cases like this, under the nature of action, some hormones, we call them local hormones, and these ones have influence on nearby target organs. Yeah, that makes them local hormones. That is, their target organs around within the locality. Then secondly, under this, we have the paracrine action, that is the one that acts on the neighboring cells. We have those one we call autocrine actions, that is the one that act on those cells, that same cell that secretes it. We also have intracrine action, the ones that act within the secreting cells, such as prostaglandin. Now, so under the general hormone, still on the nature of action explanation, we have general hormones. We have just talked about local hormones. Then the next one is general hormones. General hormones are those ones that are secreted into the bloodstream and being carried to their target organs, such as insulin. Then still under it, we have the tropic hormones. These ones are those ones that stimulate other endocrine glands to secrete their own hormones. Then we have the non-tropic hormones, which act directly on non-endocrine target tissues to induce their influence. Especially, an example is growth hormones. Yeah, that is that about that. Let's go to the ones that are connected with their mechanism of action. Under the mechanism of action, we talk about the ones that are related with receptor location. We talk about lipid-soluble hormones and water-soluble hormones. For the lipid-soluble hormone, this type of hormones diffuse through the cell membrane and bind to the intracellular receptors to affect gene expression and protein synthesis. Then the second one is the water-soluble hormones. The water-soluble hormones cannot pass through the cell membrane, but they bind to the receptors at the cell surface. So this one takes care of the mechanism of action, whether they are lipid-soluble or water-soluble, and this determines where they are binded into. Cell, we have in the picture of cell, we have the cell membrane, and we have, which is selectively permeable, such that not any substance can pass through. So that is why we say that water-soluble hormones will not be able to pass through. So that is where the extracellular cell receptors, function. They don't go straight into the cell because they cannot even pass through, but they bind with these receptors at the external portion of the cell, that is the extracellular receptors. So through which they affect enhance their effect. Whereas the lipid-soluble hormones are the ones that delve right into the cell, because they are lipid-soluble hormones. They will be able to pass through the selectively permeable cell membrane, which contains lipid and protein. Now, under the effect of such hormones, under the classification of hormones, under the effect here, the effect could be kinetic, that is, causing rapid changes like muscle contraction. It could also be metabolic, which means it regulates the body metabolism. And thirdly, it could be morphogenetic, that is, it influences growth and differentiation. Now, and whether they stimulate other endocrine glands. In terms of stimulating other endocrine glands, we have the tropic hormones, which act on different endocrine glands to regulate the secretion of other hormones to maintain its function and integrity. Yes. So through this, we'll go to the next slide. We want to touch some hormones and their functions briefly. Number one, we have follicle-stimulating hormone. Follicle-stimulating hormone, from the word follicle stimulating, that is, it is that hormone that stimulates follicles. When you look at the names of certain hormones, you can literally guess their function or the way they act or their activity. For example, this one is expressive. It is follicle stimulating hormone, which is involved in follicular development. It functions in the male and female reproductive system. In the males, it enhances spermatogenesis. And in the females, it enhances follicular development. Yes, good. Let's go to the next one, which is luteinizing hormone. Yeah, you may not be able to get the function of luteinizing hormone from the name. However, note that it is the hormone that stimulates ovulation in the female. What is ovulation? Ovulation has to do with the release of matured ova from the ovary of a physiologically matured female, whether male, animal, or human. And it is this released ova that the sperm cell fuses with for fertilization to take place. Now, let's go to the third one. We have thyroid stimulating hormone. Yes, who can take a guess of how this particular hormone function? Thyroid stimulating hormone. Thyroid stimulating hormone regulates thyroid hormone production, or we say it stimulates production of thyroid hormones. Yes, and this particular hormone is necessary for metabolism. So we have human chorionic gonadotropin. Yeah, this is an hormone that is known for its role in pregnancy, where it is produced by the developing placenta, and it's also a means of detecting pregnancy in humans and also in animals. Now, we've talked about receptors earlier. So we'll go straight to the next slide, which has to do with summary tables of endocrine glands, their hormones, and their functions. Number one, hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is a regulatory hormone. We also literally refer to it as a thermostat. You know, in pressing iron, there is a particular regulatory mechanism that enhances an automatic switch off or switch on when the temperature is below or higher than the normal for the particular material being pressed at that time. So the hypothalamus helps to regulate production of these hormones. And I also like to liken hypothalamus to a mentor hormone, because you know, as mentors, what do? They groom individuals and release them into an activity. Now, hypothalamus produces specific hormones that help to release other hormones. Yes, let's go to the detail. Now, number one of the hormones produced by the hypothalamus, we call it corticotropin releasing hormone. Corticotropin releasing hormone. Yes, from the name you can as well almost literally guess the function. It is an hormone that releases corticotropin, right? Let's go to the function. It stimulates the release of adrenocorticotropin or adrenocorticotropic hormone from the anterior pituitary gland. So hypothalamus majorly, the target organ for hypothalamus is majorly the anterior pituitary gland. That is why most of the functions are specifying anterior pituitary gland as the target organ. So let's go to the next one. We have gonadotropin releasing hormone. Gonadotropin releasing hormone stimulates the release of follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone from the anterior pituitary gland. Now, the follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone are hormones of reproduction, and they are produced from the anterior pituitary gland. But hypothalamus produces this particular hormone called gonadotropin releasing hormone, which goes to the anterior pituitary gland to release these hormones. We call them gonadotropins. That is, they are hormones specifically related to the gonads. From the word gonadotropin, we can pick gonad. The gonad, as spoken earlier, remains the testis and the ovary. So these hormones are specifically related to the gonad, that is the testis and ovary, in their function. So that is why we say gonadotropin releasing hormone releases these two hormones related to the gonads. Yes, thank you. Let's go to the third one, thyrotropin releasing hormone. Yes, who can take a guess of what function this particular hormone does? Yes, it releases thyrotropin, right? Let's go to the function. Yeah, thyrotropin releasing hormone stimulates the release of thyroid stimulating hormone from the anterior pituitary gland. Thyroid stimulating hormone is an hormone of thyroid. So it is the hormone released from the anterior pituitary gland to now go to the thyroid to function, to exert its influence. Now, another one, we have the growth hormone releasing hormone. Yes, who can guess the corrected the function of this hormone. We have, it is an hormone that releases growth hormone, right? Good. Now let's go to the function. It stimulates the release of growth hormone from the anterior pituitary gland. Now you also have growth hormone inhibiting hormone. You might wonder why the word inhibiting. Inhibiting means something that puts a stop to or prevents something. Now, if there is no mechanism to control the rate of growth, or in human and animal, probably some of us will be as tall as the sky. So there is a mechanism that regulates growth in animals or in humans when that growth is maximum. So it is under the influence of this particular hormone, which we call growth hormone inhibiting hormone. What is the function? It stimulates the inhibition of growth hormone from the anterior pituitary gland when the growth is maximum. Yes, please, in the course of this class, if you have any comment, any question, please drop it at the comment section and it will be attended to. Thank you so much. Now let's go straight to the next endocrine gland, which is called anterior pituitary gland. Yes, what did I call it? Anterior pituitary gland. Anterior pituitary gland produces a host of hormones. Here we have the somatotropin. We also call it growth hormone. Yes, from the word growth hormone, what can you deduce? What function does it perform? Yes, it promotes growth of all body cells that can grow. Let's go to the next one. Adrenocorticotropin. Adrenocorticotropin stimulates cortical development and glucocortical release. When we talk about the glucose, you can pick glucose, right? So this adrenocorticotropin has a lot to do with stimulating, it works alongside with metabolism and making energy available. Now let's go to the follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone stimulates follicular development and sperm development. It stimulates follicular development. What are follicular development? Follicles are known to be present in the ovary. So when this hormone is released, it goes to the ovary as a target organ to to exert its influence. That is, the influence it exerts is to stimulate follicular development. And also in the males, it also enhances spermatogenesis. Now, the next one is luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone, as I said earlier, stimulates ovulation and also development of corpus luteum and the secretion of androgen. It also takes part in spermatogenesis in the males. Now, corpus luteum is after there is ovulation, that is release of ova from the ovary, that portion where the ovary is removed from or is released from forms the corpus luteum. We have the thyroid stimulating hormone. Thyroid stimulating hormone stimulates release of thyroid hormones. We also have prolactin. Prolactin, from the word lactin, means to lactate or milk. So prolactin promotes lactation. Yes, let's go to the third one. The third endocrine gland is known as posterior pituitary gland. What did I call it? Posterior pituitary gland. The hormones produced by the posterior pituitary gland are the oxytocin and the anterior antidiuretic hormone, beg your pardon. Now, oxytocin stimulates uterine contraction and make leg down. And when a pregnant animal or human is to give birth or to parturiate, there is a literal squeezing and contraction that takes place prior to delivery. That influence is under the activity of the oxytocin. It is oxytocin that stimulates that contraction and that squeezing to enhance parturition. Now, so also in the milk leg down, it also squeezes literally the udder or the mammary gland to let out milk. Now, antidiuretic hormone. Antidiuretic hormone also conserves water. It reduces uterine volume. And it also constricts vessels to raise blood pressure. So antidiuretic hormone majorly acts on the kidney as its target organ. And the influence it exerts is it conserves water to reduce the uterine volume. And to also enhances constriction of blood vessels. Now, number 4, the fourth endocrine gland is the intermediate pituitary gland. The intermediate pituitary gland produces melanocyte stimulating hormone. This controls skin pigmentation. Yes, it controls skin pigmentation. Number 5, we have the adrenal gland, which also is divided into adrenal cortex and adrenal medulla. Under the adrenal gland, we have the mineralocorticoid and we have the glucocorticoid. The mineralocorticoid conserves sodium and eliminate potassium in the kidney. Yes, we also have it is also essential for normal response to stress. The glucocorticoid is necessary for response to stress and important in protein and carbohydrate metabolism in multiple organs, including the liver. Now, let's go to the next endocrine gland. We have adrenal medulla, as said earlier. Adrenal medulla produces epinephrine and norepinephrine. These two enhances sympathetic response to stress by action on several organs. Now, the epinephrine and norepinephrine are hormones that of fight or flight. That is, for example, if there is a sudden appearance of a snake before anyone, that will ginger or that will cause a sudden response to flee, and this is under the influence of epinephrine and norepinephrine. Now, another endocrine gland, we have the pancreas. We also call it isolate or Langerhans. The pancreas produces insulin and glucagon. Insulin helps to regulate glucose uptake. When the glucose concentration in the blood is very high, the hypothalamus detects it and sends signals to the pancreas to produce insulin, which now regulates or increases the glucose uptake. And from the skeletal muscle, by the skeletal muscle, the liver and the adipose and so on and so forth, to just maintain a literally low or normal glucose, serum glucose in the body. And when the glucose level is very low, the hypothalamus detects this and causes stimulation of the pancreas to cause the release of glucagon. This glucagon produces or promotes glycogenolysis. Glycogenolysis has to do with the breakdown of glycogen in the liver. After carbohydrate intake, glucose is the carbohydrate is broken down into glucose, and it is now excess glucose is stored in the liver as glycogen. And when the glucose, serum glucose is very low, the hypothalamus detects this and sends signals to the pancreas to release glucagon, which now goes to promote to the liver, the liver is the target organ. It goes to the liver to break down the glycogen back into glucose to cause an increase in the blood sugar. That is, it releases this glucose into the bloodstream, and this increases the blood sugar level to the optimum, so that this blood sugar level enhances a stable or homeostatic sugar level in the body. Now, the seventh endocrine gland is also known as the ovary. The ovary releases estrogen, which regulates female sex characteristics in the body. Now we have the summary. We also have another one is corpus luteum. The corpus luteum produces progesterone, which helps to maintain pregnancy and also prepare the mammary gland for lactation. Now, the next endocrine gland is known as thyroid gland. The thyroid gland produces thyroid hormone. We call it triiodothyronine and tetraiodothyronine, also calcitonin. These hormones accelerate metabolic rate and also regulate calcium metabolism respectively. The next one is parathyroid gland. The parathyroid gland produces parathyroid hormone, which helps to regulate metabolism of calcium and phosphorus and also increases the plasma calcium and reduction of plasma phosphate in the bone and the kidney. So the bone and the kidney are their target organs. Yes, there are still a gamut of endocrine glands which has not been covered in the course of this class. Please, you can go ahead to browse and get at least 5 other endocrine glands which has not been touched in the course of this class. I want you to get, as an assignment, get 5 endocrine glands in addition to these hormones. In addition to these endocrine glands, also add the hormones they produce and the functions as well as their target organ. And please submit this in the next class. Yes, I must appreciate everyone for listening. Thank you so much. You are well appreciated. Till the next class, stay blessed. Thank you.